Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, my name's Dychronic, your host here on this Destiny 2 video, and today we're going to be talking about the top 5 subclass trees in Destiny 2. So subclass tree are one of those 3 different subclass tree nodes in each one of the different 9 subclasses, so there are 27 total subclass trees in Destiny 2, and we will be picking out my top 5 favorite ones to use in a plethora of different activities. So this video is actually going to be a rundown of both PvE and PvP subclass trees, in my opinion of how I use it. In general, this is somewhat of a difficult thing to kind of compare and contrast, so it'll be basically on my own opinion of what I think and what I use, so it'll be a bit of more of a focus on PvE. And like I said, again, this list is completely subjective in my own opinion. Nobody's gonna have the exact same list as I do, but the reasons why I have each item on the list is gonna be quite clear when I get to it. Now, if you disagree with certain things, or you think another subclass tree node is actually superior, tell me exactly why it is superior to that particular thing. For example, I have one particular subclass tree that I think is better for ad clearing than any other subclass tree in the entire game. So if you have a thing that you think is better, compare to me why you think it's better than my particular choice. And of course, if you wanted to get your hands on the spreadsheet, although it's really not that much detail, mostly just a perk lineup, make sure you stay till the end. I'll tell you how to get your hands on it. And the final thing I want to mention before I get into today's video is that I'm doing a giveaway right now of some 4-day passes to PAX West 2019. I personally am going to PAX West 2019. I go to PAX West nearly every year for the last like 4 or 5 years. I absolutely love it, and the 4-day passes were completely sold out really fast. I think there's still Monday passes available, but if you wanted to go and you didn't get the chance to get your 4-day passes, I'm doing a giveaway right now of 4 4-day passes. And if you wanted to enter, just head in the description down below. It's a Gleam link. It's completely free. You just have to follow a couple different steps, like follow the channel, follow the Twitter, stuff like that. Pretty simple, pretty straight up. I am not asking you to spend any money, by the way. There's going to be an option for subbing on Twitch. That is just for those people who do already support me. You can technically do it, but I don't encourage spending money for this. I just put it there in case you were already supporting it. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into number 5. In this top 5 video, it's going to be the Warlock subclass tree known as Attunement of Ion. Now, this is one of my favorite subclass trees to use in the Crucible. Definitely my favorite Warlock super to use in Crucible. It is just very fun to use. It's very easy to use. And if you pair it with Transcendent, so when you cast it with a full grenade and melee energy, Storm Trance lasts longer and fully restores health. And like, I'm not kidding. It's like 1.5 to 2 times longer than normally is if you have a full grenade and full melee. So try to hold on to your melee and grenade near the end of your super, and you will have a longer super that is just really effective. The only issue with this super is that it doesn't have a lot of to it. It is very much a higher RPM, lower damage kind of super. So if you find enemy supers or enemies with heavies, try to keep them in your range and outside of their range. Because the fact that it is a ranged super, it allows you to kind of balance that, and it takes a lot of skill combined with Ionic Blink to keep away from the enemy when they have a power control. Outside of that, I would say in PvE, it doesn't really do great boss damage, and it doesn't really do that well against ads. There's often a lot of other better things like Dawnblade that can do that much better. Coming up at number 4 in this top 5 countdown is going to be the Titan subclass tree known as Code of the Fire Forge. Now, as a Titan main, to see my favorite Titan subclass tree as number 4 kind of saddens me, but it also makes a lot of sense. It has definitely been in decline over the last few DLCs because of a lot of different reasons. First of all, what makes it amazing is Hammer Strike and Vulcan's Rage with the supers. Hammer Strike basically gives you the rushing melee attack, making the targets that you hit get 50% more damage from all sources. It's great for doing extra boss damage, doing elite damage, combining it with Ikelos damage. It's just really fun to use, very useful. Vulcan's Rage adding extra explosions to your supers and just using super for ad clear. Just a lot of opportunities to use this to good use, but with the last few DLCs, using Hammer Strike has just not been feasible or useful, or even actually, does it actually work? Like, for example, Scourge of the Pass, it doesn't actually work on that boss. Riven, it's really hard to hit without dying. Using it on Galron's also really kind of difficult, or the Deceptions are a little bit easier, but you don't really need it on the Deceptions because you have other things like Tractor Cannon. Honestly, it's just kind of fallen a little bit more into the realm of like strike bosses, hitting elites and yellow health bars, and just general ad clear. Not really that much of a meta these days. That being said, I still think it's really useful, and it's a very powerful neutral game against elites and just enemies throughout the game. Coming up at number 3 in this top 5 video, it's going to be the Hunter subclass tree known as Way of the Trapper. Now, you guys have probably heard of Way of the Trapper, combining it with Orpheus Rig, tethering large groups of enemies, summoning tons and tons of orbs, getting your super back with Orpheus Rigs is one of the best PvE supers in the game, just as a great support mechanic, great for slowing down giant groups of enemies, and on top of that, the neutral game is actually really powerful as well, using Snare Bomb to disorient enemies so you can kind of dump on them, using things like Vanishing Steps so you can dodge and vanish from sight, so invisibility, so go revive your teammates or escape damage. Lots of great opportunities to survive and support your team and just do a lot of great things in PvE. The obvious downside to this is that you're not going to be doing a whole lot of damage. There's a lot better options for doing damage, for a lot of different subclasses, for a lot of different buffs, for doing extra damage, but it is still very useful in its own way. Coming up at number 2 in this top 5 video is going to be the Hunter subclass tree known as Way of the Warrior. Now, in my opinion, Way of the Warrior paired up with the Raid and Flux exotic chest piece is the best ad clearing super and subclass in the entire game. Now, why is it the best in the game in my opinion? First of all, it does a lot of damage. With Raid and Flux, it does even more damage. Secondly, its swings are AoE, so you don't just hit one target, you hit a big arc in front of you. And lastly, it lasts a really long time, like 24 to 27 light attack swings with Raid and Flux on as long as you're hitting enemies. It's kind of ridiculous. Let's go ahead and compare it to some of the other competing ad clearing supers and subclasses in the game. First of all, the Dawn Blade of Attunement of Flame actually lasts a long time, but has diminishing returns after killing enemies and does not do as much damage per sword as Arc Staff does in my opinion, although it does have very much superior mobility. Next up, Coat of Juggernaut for the Titan using Trample to keep on getting more and more super, again diminishing returns, and you're also attacking one enemy at a time, although you can pair it up with Synthoceps to make the super even more powerful. It's just not as good as the AoE attacks and the damage of Arc Staff. And then finally, Coat of the Aggressor with Doomfang Pauldrons and Grenadier, making it so you can have literally infinite super as long as you're still attacking enemies the entire time. You still need to have Grenadier, lots of grenade mods, lots of enemies to actually make it work. I still think Arc Staff and Way of the Warrior is the most superior ad clearing super in the entire game. And finally, coming up at number 1 as my favorite, and I think the number 1 subclass tree in the entire game, the Warlock subclass tree, Attunement of Grace with its Well of Radiance is absolutely undeniably the best subclass in the game, giving you nearly invincibility with also a damage buff, combining it with Phoenix Protocol to keep giving you super after super after super with lots of different enemies, combining it with other teammates supers to give you orbs. You can literally have, you know, super rifts the entire time you're doing certain activity, making the entirety of the Reckoning Bridge an absolute cakewalk. Without a well or a bubble, that entire activity or that section of the encounter is very difficult, but with it, it's child's play. Even Luke Smith, the lead designer at Destiny 2, is actually mentioned it multiple times in his recent director's cuts as the thing that everyone has to have in raids, making it so it is a non-choice. You have to bring it along for certain raids, for certain encounters, certain boss fights, and oftentimes they're forced to build certain activities around this amazing near invincibility damage boosting super. And for that reason, I think it's the best in the game. On top of the fact that the neutral game, somewhat underrated in my opinion, is also really good. You charge up your grenade, you can send out a healing grenade that also charges your grenade recharge speed and your rift speed. On top of that, your rift also recharges your rift and your grenade speed and healing your teammates, giving you overshield. It saved my life so many times. Even if it's just saving your own life, you save your lives with this overshield. It's just a very powerful neutral game, very supportive and very useful in a lot of different scenarios. Now, obviously this is not much of a PvP style kind of a super or subclass, but in PvE it is just required for almost every single activity. And that is pretty much it. That's going to be the end of the video of my favorite subclass trees in the game. Again, super subjective. Everything is my own opinion of what I use and how I use it and all that stuff. But please let me know in the comments down below. I do want to hear what your favorite are and why and how they compare to the different things that I have mentioned, whether it be boss damage or whether it be ad clear or PvP or any of the things of the sort. Right now, if you can see on screen, you can actually see my spreadsheet. Now, this spreadsheet's not going to be as useful as my previous spreadsheets. Usually there's like lots of extra numbers and recommendations. In this one, it's mostly a copy and paste job. You know, if you want to know where to get certain supers for Forsaken or the base games, or how you get certain things, if you wanted to just use this as a resource for building certain builds, it's there for you with some very minor recommendations for notes and whatnot. Not really a big resource, but of course there is my top 5 here in case you were interested. Of course, a tiny cute little legend with some sources on the right. So in general, I also wanted to add a DPS chart to show the DPS of certain supers and the total damage and whatnot, but I didn't have time to get to that. And I know that in Shadowkeep there are going to be updating damage numbers and a couple of different supers, like for example, Kota the Protector Bubble is actually getting Weapons of Light again. So a lot of things are going to be changing, and it's probably a good thing I didn't get to it, because there's going to be a lot of redoing a lot of things very soon. And of course, if you wanted to get your hands on this spreadsheet, just go head over to my Discord, which is linked in the description down below. Go over to the hashtag YouTube Twitch channel, and around the date at which this video came out is going to be the link to the spreadsheet. Anyways, that is pretty much the end of the video. Hope you guys did enjoy. Of course, my name is that a neon cat? Oh, it is a neon cat. I didn't know that was there. My name is Dychronic, and I will see you guys on the next one.